Hello and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching India Today Global. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark on a 4-day visit to West Asia and Africa. He would be visiting 3 countries, Jordan, Ethiopia and Oman, from the 15th to the 18th of December. Prime Minister Modi will first visit Jordan King Abdullah II, and it will also mark the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations between India and Jordan. Both countries will focus on strengthening bilateral relations and areas of collaboration. Prime Minister Modi will then embark on a state visit to Ethiopia and will also be his first visit to the country. Then he will wrap up his trip by visiting Oman. It will be Prime Minister's second visit to Oman. Both countries share a comprehensive strategic partnership, including trade and strong people-to-people ties. It will also be the 70th year of diplomatic relations since Sultan Haitham bin Tariq's visit to India in 2023. The countries will review trade, investment, energy, defense, security, technology, agriculture, and culture. Staying with the story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's landmark visit to Jordan, which will be his first, marks a major push in India's West Asia strategy, strengthening political dialogue, trade and regional security cooperation at a time when West Asia faces its most volatile moment in years. Farhan Khan with this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to kick off his 3-nation tour to Jordan, Oman and Ethiopia with a highly significant stop in Jordan from 15th to 16th December. And while the visit may appear normal on paper, it comes at a moment when West Asia is more volatile than it has been in years, making Modi's engagement with Amman both timely and strategically important. This will be Modi's first full-fledged bilateral visit to Jordan. His last interaction with the country was a brief transit stop in 2018 en route to Ramallah. But this time, the visit stands on its own and carries weight. India and Jordan are marking 75 years of diplomatic relations, and both sides are preparing to review the entire gamut of ties, as the Ministry of External Affairs has put it. Jordan may not dominate headlines the way other West Asian countries do, but it holds an outsized influence in regional politics. It is a frontline state on the Israel-Palestine issue, the custodian of Muslim holy sites in Jerusalem, and home to a large number of Palestinian refugees. In the aftermath of the Gaza conflict and shifting Arab alignments, Jordan's voice has become even more critical. Modi's visit therefore signals India's intention to engage directly with a moderate Arab monarchy that often acts as a stabilizing force in the region.
Jordan is a respected name in historical and religious heritage of the world. Under the far-sighted leadership of His Majesty King Abdullah, Jordan has achieved sustainable and inclusive growth. Its progress in economic, social, and cultural development has been remarkable. In an important region of the world, Jordan has emerged as a powerful voice and a global symbol of moderation and inclusivity. It has emerged as a model state living in peace with its neighbors and is a symbol of stability and a voice of reason. His Majesty, the King, continues to play a key role in the promotion of peace in West Asia.
Experts stress that Jordan's geography and political posture make it indispensable in conversations about regional stability. Amman consistently supports a two-state solution, a position India also backs. And it has quietly played mediator during moments of crisis. The visit will allow the two countries to exchange assessments on the fast-changing situation in West Asia, counterterrorism concerns, and ways to prevent further escalation. But this trip is not just about geopolitics. there is a strong economic dimension as well. India is Jordan's fourth largest trading partner, with bilateral trade touching nearly $2.9 billion in 2023-24. India imports key fertilizers and phosphates from Jordan, essential for its agricultural sector, while exporting machinery, chemicals, cereals, frozen meat, and other products. There is also growing interest around the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC, which is expected to pass through Jordan. As Amman undertakes economic reforms and seek fresh investments, sectors like fintech, renewable energy, automobiles, and advanced manufacturing are opening up. Experts argue that this is an opportunity for Indian businesses to expand their presence in a country that traditionally hasn't been given enough attention in India's West Asia policy. Energy cooperation remains another promising frontier. Jordan is located close to the gas-rich eastern Mediterranean basin and is exploring ways to attract investment in the sector. Indian companies could play a key role as Amman diversifies its energy sources to ensure long-term stability. Jordan has also supported India's foreign policy positions, including on Kashmir and the broader Neighborhood First agenda. The political warmth and steady goodwill between the two countries provide a strong foundation for Modi's upcoming visit. In essence, Modi's Jordan visit is more than a symbolic anniversary gesture. It is India's attempt to cement ties with a dependable partner at a time of regional turmoil. By deepening political dialogue, economic cooperation, and strategic coordination, New Delhi is signaling that Amman will remain an essential pillar of its West Asia engagement. With Farhan Khan, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
The United States has intensified pressure on Venezuela, with President Trump announcing fresh sanctions on relatives and associates of President Nicolas Maduro. The move comes amid growing scrutiny over a recent military strike and follows the U.S. seizure of a Venezuelan oil tanker, escalating tensions between Washington and Caracas.
As U.S. lawmakers mount pressure on Trump administration to release the raw video of the September 2nd strike on boat as a part of Operation Southern Spear, President Trump announced new sanctions on family members of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. President Trump has stressed the need to put an end to drug trafficking and accused the Maduro government of smuggling drugs into the United States. The sanctions have been imposed on 3 nephews of Maduro's wife, Celia Flores, a Maduro-affiliated businessman, and 6 shipping companies operating in Venezuela's oil sector. Earlier, the nephews, dubbed as narco nephews, were convicted in 2016 on charges that they tried to carry out a multi-million-dollar cocaine deal and sentenced to 18 years in prison, but were released in a 2022 prison swap with Venezuela. This also comes within days of the US government's revamped 33-page national security strategy, wherein the administration has stressed on readjustment of the US military presence in the Western Hemisphere to counter migration, drug trafficking, and what it describes as the rise of adversarial powers in the region based on the Monroe Doctrine.
Well, it's about a lot of things, but one of the things it's about is the fact that they've allowed millions of people to come into our country from their prisons, from gangs, from drug dealers, and from mental institutions, probably proportionately more than anybody else. They came in from many countries. We're getting them out. We had 11,888 murderers come into our country. Many of them are from Venezuela. We had thousands of Tren de Aragua, the gang, come in from, which they say is the most violent gang. I don't know, MS-13 is pretty bad, but Tren de Aragua, they say, is the most violent gang. That comes out from the prisons of Venezuela. It came out of the prisons of Venezuela.
The sanction follows the oil tanker seizure by the US on the coast of Venezuela.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
Meanwhile, Maduro had condemned the seizure of oil tanker and ordered for legal and diplomatic action.
mostró el informe de la DEA.
Yesterday, they committed an absolutely criminal and illegal act when they proceeded to carry out a military assault, kidnapping and robbery like pirates of the Caribbean on a private civilian commercial merchant ship, a ship of peace that was assaulted almost as it was reaching the Atlantic. They kidnapped the crew, they stole the ship. They have ushered in a new era, the era of criminal naval piracy in the Caribbean. So Venezuela rejects its entirety this act of criminal piracy against the entire Caribbean. And I have already given sufficient instructions for all the necessary legal and diplomatic actions to be taken and measures to be implemented, because Venezuela will secure all ships to guarantee the free trade of its oil to the world.
De paz que fue asaltada ya casi agarrando el Atlántico.
The US Treasury Department said it has imposed sanctions on 6 shipping companies moving Venezuelan oil, as well as 6 crude oil tankers that it said have engaged in deceptive and unsafe shipping practices and continue to provide financial resources that fuel Maduro's corrupt narco-terrorist regime. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
In an exclusive interview to India Today Global, Celso Amorim, chief advisor to Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, spoke about Venezuela and if Brazil would help the Venezuelan government by granting political asylum to Maduro if the US-Venezuela standoff goes south. For the entire interview, please watch India Today Global's YouTube channel.
Well, what happens inside Venezuela, it's a Venezuelan question. It's for them to decide. Of course, I was there during the elections. I didn't think the elections were fully as they should have been, but we continue to have relations with them because we consider this a problem of an internal problem of Venezuela. We from outside can give some help, but only when there are people in dialogue, and there's no dialogue now. And of course, these acts of aggression or economic isolation, all that only aggravates the situation. It doesn't help at all. We had the example in the past when the U.S. government recognized another gentleman, Mr. Guaido, as president. Did that help? Not at all. In the end, even Mr. Guaido, nobody speaks about him anymore. He's a non-being almost. So this is not a way of acting by pressure, by violation. I think we have to do in a different way. I think it's our duty to help, if there is room for it, to help in a peaceful solution. And if there is no room for it, then we'll have to think. But I prefer not to advance that.
Mexico has announced one of its biggest tariff strikes in decades, hitting more than 1,400 products from countries without a trade pact, and India is one of the biggest targets. From cars to steel, the impact is huge. So what does this mean for India's exports? Here is a report by Jyoti Shukla.
Mexico has triggered one of its biggest protectionist moves in decades, and India is caught right in the middle of it. Starting January 1st, 2026, Mexico will impose tariffs between 5 and 50% on more than 1,460 products from any country that does not have a free trade agreement with it. India is one of those countries, China too. So what's behind this sudden tariff strike? There are 4 clear reasons. First, Mexico wants to stop the flood of cheap Chinese imports. China's trade surplus with Mexico has crossed $100 billion. Mexican steel, auto parts, and textiles have been badly hit. Many Chinese companies are also using Mexico as a base to re-export goods into the US. Mexico wants to shut that route down. Second, Mexico is signaling loyalty to Washington. The US-Mexico trade deal comes up for review in 2026. Both Biden and Donald Trump have warned Mexico about being a gateway for Chinese goods. By taxing non-FTA countries, Mexico is telling the US, we're on your side. Third, politics. The Sheinbaum government is selling this as a move to protect local industries and jobs. And fourth, revenue. These tariffs will generate nearly $4 billion a year for Mexico's budget. So how badly does this hit India? Quite hard. After China, India is one of the biggest losers under this new regime. India exports nearly $1 billion worth of passenger vehicles to Mexico every year. From January, these cars will face a 50% tariff, more than double the current rate. That makes Indian cars almost unviable unless companies start assembling in Mexico. Auto parts worth up to $700 million will face tariffs of 25 to 50%. Iron and steel exports around $900 million will now attract duties of 35 to 40%. Textiles, apparel and footwear worth over $500 million will face duties above 30%. And chemicals and pharmaceuticals will see moderate tariffs between 15 and 30%. In total, India exported nearly $9 billion worth of goods to Mexico last year. A 25 to 40% fall is now expected in the affected sectors. India has taken the issue up diplomatically. The push now is for a fast-track trade agreement or at least partial tariff relief covering automobiles and steel. In short, Mexico's move is aimed at China, but India becomes collateral damage. The winners are Mexican domestic industries and the US. The losers, Indian exporters, Chinese firms and ultimately Mexican consumers who will now pay more. With Jyoti Shukla, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
And here are some other stories we couldn't really focus on in World at a Glance.
Kilmer Abrego, whose wrongful deportation case drew attention under President Donald Trump's immigration policies, said he would stand firm against all of the injustices this government has imposed. After a US judge ordered his release from the immigration detention, he was allowed to return to his Maryland home despite repeated declarations from Trump administration officials that he would never again be free in the United States. The Trump administration plans to appeal the ruling. NATO chief Mark Rutte urged allies to step up defense efforts to prevent a war waged by Russia that could be on the scale of war our grandparents and great-grandparents endured. He also said Russia could be ready to use military force against NATO within 5 years. Meanwhile, the prime ministers of Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania met for discussions focusing on regional security and NATO cooperation amid ongoing tensions in Eastern Europe. The meeting aimed at strengthening NATO's presence in the region, especially the eastern flank. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun said Japanese militarism is the enemy of people worldwide. Guo said this on the 12th National Memorial Day for Nanjing massacre victims, which falls on December 13th. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War, as well as China's recovery of Taiwan. President Donald Trump's decision to dismantle the US Agency for International Development and slash global aid programs severed lifelines for children. The US agency was funding the purchase and distribution of roughly half the world's supply of ready-to-use therapeutic food, a nutrient-dense, peanut-based paste used to treat children with the most lethal form of undernourishment known as severe acute malnutrition or wasting. UNICEF, the world's largest buyer and distributor of IUTF, said the nutritious paste in parts of Kenya were reaching health facilities in more critical condition.
That's all on this edition of India Today Global. But before I go, here's statecraft for you on the upcoming elections in Bangladesh. With Awami League out, Hasina exiled, BNP set to sweep elections. What does it mean? Bangladesh is racing toward a February 2026 election that already looks less like a democratic comeback and more like a political deja vu soaked in irony, rage, and recycled chaos. Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, now the unlikely administrator of a post-uprising nation, has announced the first national vote since the students' uprising that toppled Sheikh Hasina. But instead of a glorious democratic reset, the country is spiraling back into the same old cycle. boycotts, bans, bitterness, and ballot box theatre. The Awami League has been struck off the map. Hasina herself in India, after fleeing the 2024 revolt, is facing the death penalty in her home country. Her party has been banned and is now refusing to touch these polls. BNP is positioned to win. Jamaat is back. Student leaders are scrambling, and the ghost of 2014 hangs over the entire country. With February 2026 turning into a mirror of past betrayals, will Bangladesh ever see real democracy? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. To understand how explosive this moment truly is, you have to rewind to the contradictions built into Bangladesh's history. In this nation, democracy always arrives with conditions, warnings, coups, boycotts, and retribution. Yunus calls the February 2026 election an important milestone, a turning point after the historic 2024 uprising. But the Awami League says it's nothing more than the same old power grab in a new outfit. In 2014, BNP boycotted Hasina's election because she scrapped the caretaker system. Now, Hasina's banned Awami League is boycotting because they claim Yunus's administration isn't neutral either. The decision to deregister Awami League wasn't framed as a ban, but the effect is the same. They cannot contest February 2026. Over 1,300 Awami League leaders are jailed. Hasina's name is tied to war crimes probes. Key figures are exiled, assets frozen, activists hunted, and the party is being pushed into a corner it once pushed others into. The irony bites deep. The same Awami League that crushed BNP's ability to compete in 2014 and 2018 is now being crushed under the Yunus administration in 2026. The ground reality is brutal. Without the Awami League, the February 2026 election will be more competitive than Hasina-era elections, but less inclusive than meaningful democracy demands. BNP, Jamaat, and smaller groups may sweep, but sweeping a tainted field doesn't heal the wounds of legitimacy. Millions of Awami League supporters risk being left politically homeless. Hasina, speaking from India, warns that if her party remains excluded, her supporters will boycott the vote en masse. That means the turnout could collapse, the mandate could be questioned, and the victory, whoever claims it, could be fragile from day one. The army wants the election sooner to stabilize the country. BNP wants December 2025. Yunus chose February 2026. And Awami League wants no election unless they're allowed back in. Can a nation with this much political memory ever start fresh? When every party remembers decades of betrayal, when every victor uses the state to crush opponents, when every loser claims victimhood, Bangladesh cycles through vengeance, not transition, through purges, not healing, through exclusion, not inclusion.